Welcome back to Moon Harbor Heroes. Today's issue is Cataclysm Crew, issue 11, All In. On the cover, Alan, Amber, and Max sit at a poker table with members of the Midtown Mutant Mobsters, in poses very reminiscent of the C.M. Coolidge painting Dogs Playing Poker. Squire's at the center of the table, incredibly in her element. In the bottom left-hand corner is a silver embossed logo in bold letters, Blockade. We turn the page and our story begins.
So we have a panel that showed like a manila folder which has like the in-game date of the last session on it. And there's a few drops of water that have been dripped on it. And so the next several panels show the contents of it, which are a bunch of screenshots from social media showcasing Cataclysm Crew's latest escapade. So like the first one is a picture from the Snapchat story of one of the students in Trig, which shows Alan with his arm around Amber flying through the window as Max grabs on. That's captioned, "What the fuck?" with several question marks. There's a screenshot of a group text conversation, which starts with a picture of the contents of Max's backpack, the Rascal King costume. And there are several replies of shock and disbelief. And then we have one that stands out from our friend Matt saying, "They're both dweebs. Makes sense." There's a Snapchat from Rascal King, clearly taken by Squire, showing Tyrannus and Machina in Boost Office. And then another Snapchat from Rascal King showing Machina typing at the computer at her dad's apartment, captioned, "Hacker voice, I'm in." Ton of photos from Rascal King's Instagram of the motorcycle, followed by one from Machina's Instagram. That's the selfie of the two of them on the bike. So then the next panel shows a computer screen with an article up that's headlined, "Rascal King's secret identity revealed?" ? And reflected on the screen, we see the intern. There are dark circles under her eyes, and she's crying, like absolutely sobbing. And the last panel shows Missing Link standing next to her with a comforting hand on her shoulder. The intern is saying, "I don't get paid enough for this." And Missing Link's replies, "You and me both, kid."
We go straight from there into a couple panels of street cameras, like the view from street cameras, recapping the very last bit of the adventure from last time. We see a camera in an alleyway where you can see Max physically physically in pain from what Alan has just said to him. We see Max kind of like flinch away. The camera cuts to the two people, Alan and Amber, knocking on the door, and then cuts back to the alleyway where I know Max is gone. Is the motorcycle gone as well?
Yes.
So Max and the motorcycle are both gone. And then it cuts back to a silent picture of the door opening. The camera can't see the figure inside the door. We all know who it is. We all know that it's traceless. But we just see the door opening. And we see, like, from over Amber's shoulder, this, like, look of, like, abject... I'm not going to use the word horror, but, like, shock.
That's definitely the look on her face.
Yeah, and then immediately we cut to a phone ringing. It's a black panel, like a black page, with just like ring, 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 kind of like super cut across it. We get a full page of that, and then like one black panel on the beginning of the next page. And then we cut to two elderly people in a car. The caption at the top, the little box at the top reads, "A few days ago." You all might recognize them. The readers would not recognize these two, but Amber, you would recognize these two as your grandparents.
Oh, man.
There's a little box that says like Shirley and Michael, Amber's grandparents. And Shirley's on the phone. Michael is driving. Shirley keeps calling and calling, and she's like, "Amber isn't picking up. I knew we should have driven out a couple days ago. She said she would be fine to get through the week, and then we could come pick her up later, but she's not picking up." And she's talking very rapidly. And we see Michael kind of spacing out a little bit, because as we zoom out from the car, we see the Asteron spaceship, which has landed, or hasn't landed, is floating above the highway and blocking the entrance. And as we zoom out a little bit more, we see hundreds of Asteron guards and military and generals and such just walking the streets with these large taser cannons that we know them also, that we are also familiar with.
Oh, shit.
Walking the streets around them. And then we get a close-up panel on Just Michael's lips that says, "She'll be okay. I promise. I know she'll be okay." And then we cut to a close-up again of a cup of tea. We get the cup of tea. We get another panel of steam coming out of the tea. We get a panel of that same cup of tea, but a spoon now stirring it. And then we get a panel where we zoom out and we see Traceless with a cup of tea in his hand, sitting at a couch with Amber and Alan standing in the doorway. And he looks up and says, "You can come in, you know."
Amber will step inside.
Hesitantly, Alan will step inside.
As you two step inside the house, you notice that it's a pretty standard looking house if you ignore the fact that there are cameras in every single inch of this building. The entire ceiling, not the entire ceiling, but every probably 4 feet on the ceiling, there's a camera angled in a different direction. And just it seems like the entire house is under constant surveillance. Traceless seems to be the only one immediately in the vicinity. And he's just stirring his tea. There's a teapot with 3 cups sitting on the table, and he says, "Wait, there were 3 of you when you pulled up. Where's the third one?"
I think for this, Amber's just gonna we get a panel of just Amber turns to look at Alan with an eyebrow raised, you want to answer that one?
Alan looks at Traceless and goes and says, "That's not for you to know." He's actually going to get right to the point. Where's Queen Bee?
Traceless kind of gives a half smile and says, "She isn't far, but I mean, not like anyone's getting out of the city. Would you like a spot of tea? It's chamomile."
Yeah, I'll have some.
He pours a cup of tea, puts a tea bag in. It's just the hot water. He pours the hot water, puts a tea bag in it, and says, "You probably want to let that steep for a second. I know you tend to be a little bit hasty with these things." And he kind of smiles at you a little bit. It's not like an aggressive smile. It's just like the way that dads tease daughters sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then he looks at Alan and says, "And you, Tyrannus, is that the name? Would you like a cup of tea?"
No, thank you. I prefer to stay awake.
Understood. We have soda. I think we might have Coke. I think we have Fanta. There might be some corn Fanta in the fridge.
This entire time, as he's talking, Alan is looking around the room and taking note of, the cameras and looking to see maybe there's, taking note of any exits and anything like that, while Traceless is talking towards him.
Yeah. Do you want to roll to assess the situation or just looking around the room?
I'll assess the situation. Yeah, we'll
Cool.
do that. That's a roll.
Mark that potential. You got it. As you're looking around the room, things don't quite seem to be adding up. Like the picture on the wall, it looks like a really happy family, but that's not Queen Bee's family. You know from the man that you spoke to that she used to live here, or rather from your research that she used to live here. The man implied that she did not live there anymore. That someone lives here now, but it's like this is a house clearly, but it's decorated in family photos. You notice after a moment, at least, that prominently featured in most of the photographs are Crux and Reset, who, as we remember, were 2 of the mutants who were broken out in the botched prisoner transference operation that you all were part of, where Traceless also got out, and Queen Bee, and Bruce, and a lot of other pretty big villains. But it looks like there's Crux and Reset and a young girl in a lot of these pictures. And Traceless is going to turn, he's going to say, "No, Queen Bee does not live here anymore. I can see you looking for signs, but she moved away a while ago. We did, however, decide to keep it in the family. We, the MMM." And then he looks at Amber and he says, "MMM means the Midtown Mutant Mobsters."
I'm aware.
And he is shifting your labels. He's shifting your superior down and your mundane up.
I'm going to take it.
Cool. And he gestures for Alan to sit and he says, "I promise this will be much faster if you just ask questions instead of trying to sneak and figure out what's going on. I'm not going to lie to you.
So where is Queen Bee?
She's downstairs.
Alan pulls a chair and has a seat. That's it?
Traceless nods.
Downstairs? I mean, do you know why we're here?
I assume you're here to try to get these imprisoned or the escaped prisoners back for Saber.
Amber bursts out laughing.
Traceless looks a little bit confused and he's like, well, based on what Queen Bee told me, I assumed that you would, want her back because of her relation to the Asterons.
They didn't say anything about like imprisoning her. This is more of just like a mutual benefit truce thing.
He smiles and says, Amber, you're not that naive. You know that there's no mutually beneficial situation where Queen Bee or anyone from the MMM and that for that matter and Saber will work together.
Shit.
No one from Saber is that trustworthy.
Well, you're right. They want Queen Bee back. What if we didn't turn her in instead? Could she help us get rid of the mess in the sky?
Without us going to Saber at all?
Traceless kind of grins a little bit, and Traceless looks like Alan says, the golden boy of Saber doesn't want to work with them anymore. I don't quite understand.
I got fired, so I don't work for them anymore.
He cocks an eyebrow, but he doesn't say anything. There's a definite look that you probably catch, Alan. He knows more than he's gonna say, but he's not saying anything, so he's not gonna reveal your secret just yet. And then he says, I think we could talk about it, but I'm not really the one for negotiations. I think that you'd have to talk to someone a little bit higher up for that. And then he turns and he reaches over to the coffee table and lifts up the lamp. Underneath the lamp on the coffee table is a red button. And he presses it and an intercom starts like staticking up. And he says, they're here and it seems like they want to talk. So should I send them down? And then a voice that you recognize as the mobster, aka the head of MMM, says, of course, send them in. Traceless stands up and walks towards a closet, opens it. It looks like a pretty standard closet. It's pretty small. Got a vacuum in it and a couple other things. And then he puts his palm against the light panel and slides the entire thing out of the way to reveal another smaller panel underneath. He presses a couple keys on that panel and the back wall of the closet slides away to reveal a staircase going down. And he says, all right, after you.
Can we get a panel of like Alan and Amber just like sharing a glance of, oh boy.
Absolutely.
In the background of that panel, can we get Squire peeking them through a window?
Yep. Are you all heading down the stairs? Do you want to have a conversation while we walk? Or are you just going to be
I think
downstairs?
Amber's going to head. I think Amber's going to take the lead.
Cool.
And Alan will follow.
Great. We see the two of them on...
One thing, as Alan leaves the kitchen for the closet, did Traceless walk down ahead of us or is he staying in the kitchen?
He's standing like in the doorway. He's like, he opened the closet and he may follow you down the stairs, but he's like standing. He hasn't led you down.
Okay. As Alan crosses the path of Traceless, Alan will basically stare directly into Traceless' eyes in a knowing, I know you know. Don't say a word.
I'm gonna have you roll to provoke.
Okay.
I know it's not really with words, but I think it counts.
All right.
All right. On a 10, they rise to the bait and do what you want.
Ooh.
So he gives the smallest imperceptible nod, and as you walk past, he whispers, so that Machina can't hear, so that Amber can't hear, he whispers, don't worry, kid. We've all got our secrets down here. And with that, he closes the door of the closet behind you all.
Damn, he's really just going to backstab his daughter like that.
And for a minute, you're plunged into complete darkness. And then the stairwell lights up. And it's very, very brightly lit in this, like, green glow. It's not a ridiculously long staircase. We're not, like, descending into the pits of hell here. But it's probably a good like 2 or 3 stories down, or 2 stories down.
Can we get a panel
just-
with like Amber reaching her hand back to grab Alan's, just like, hey, just in case, give me a boost.
Alan will take Amber's hand without a problem.
You two arrive. Are you giving her the boost for later for her to use?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Cool.
Is there any chance Squire could slip in with them unnoticed?
I think Squire can slip in unnoticed. I think that the closet is not like, it does not have a latch on it. It's just like one of those like closet door that doesn't close all the way. So Squire could slip in and go down the stairs. I think as we get down lower, you may have to make a roll to not be seen. But I think for now, Squire's okay. You make it down to the bottom of the stairs, and the first thing you see, there's a landing that like kind of makes a sharp left. It's like a kind of like curved pathway at left. So essentially you curve until you're walking underneath the stairs. And as you kind of like curve to the left, the first thing you see is the very, very tall form of Bruce, who is muscle bound. And if you remember, Bruce was the shark person, a mutant.
Street sharks!
Yep, exactly. And so he's very broad and muscular and kind of terrifying. And it's just his silhouette as you turn the corner. And I do think that we get like a panel of you two flinching a little bit. I think it was a bit startling. And then Bruce just has this like low chuckle. We still only see Bruce's silhouette, but this chuckle is like in big white letters cut across the panel. And then he kind of turns and gestures and says, "The boss is right through there." And he lets you pass him.
Are we still holding hands?
I don't know. Are you still holding hands?
Yep.
Awesome.
As you walk past, he whispers, "Lovebirds." And then he snaps his jaws loudly right behind you all. Not in like a sexual way, in a way to like very much scare you. He is now turned, so Squire could probably slip through pretty easily without being seen at this point. And like slip past his feet.
I'm okay with Squire just kind of like, we get a panel like Squire settling down to like a shadowed area.
Cool. And you get to an open archway, behind which there's a table with 4 people sitting at it. We've got Crux, Reset, Queen Bee, and at the head of the table, it's a circular table, so there's no real head of it, but you can tell where the head of the table is the mobster. And they all have tea as well. The mobster has a like modified teacup that's like been specially built for his lobster claw.
Excellent.
And we see like the first thing we see is him looking up with his like very, very beady black eyes through this like steam coming up out of the mug. And he says, "So you're Trace's kid, and you're once in future Saber, or whatever we're calling you now. Would you like a seat?" And he gestures, and Crux and Reset get up and clear the table. Queen Bee is still sitting there, and she gives you this like very malicious smile.
Ooh.
Alan
and
wants to kind of tug at Amber's hand, and then he says, "If you don't mind, I would rather stand."
The mobster grins, and then he says, "Then we'll all stand." And the mobster stands up, and I don't remember exactly how tall I said he was, but I believe I said he was about 8 feet tall.
Damn.
He stands up, and again, just like blocks out the light. He puts out a hand, a claw, and says, "People call me the mobster. Nice to meet both of you."
You too.
The pleasure is ours.
Do you take his claw, or do you just like ignore it?
I'm actually going to take it. I'm going to reach out. I'm going to, since I have Amber's hand in my left hand, I'm going to reach out with my right hand and take his claw for a claw shake. Wonder how that tastes.
He pulls you in ever so slightly, not like pulling you off balance, just like pulling you slightly forward. And he is an adult, and he is kind of the biggest villain in the city. So I do think there's a slight moment of, imperceptible as it may be, a slight eye widening as he pulls you in. And then he bursts out laughing. And he's like, "All right, kids, stand down. It's fine." Or he's like, "All right, soldiers, stand down. It's fine. We're all friends here, right?" And then the other 3 villains kind of are like, "Yeah, friends. Absolutely. We're all friends here." As we say that, we cut back to look at the 2 of you, and Bruce has stepped into the archway behind you, blocking the primary exit. There are 2 other exits out of this room. One looks like a locked room, and then one looks like a staircase up in a different direction. And he kind of nods and says, I know you didn't want tea earlier, but we have it if you want some now. And if not, we can offer you something else. Vodka, whiskey. And then he looks and says, wait, how old are you kids?
15.
16.
He says, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if you know, but that's illegal. I can't offer children alcohol. And then
Actually,
all 5
under
of the
your
girls kind of laugh at that.
Alan's gonna pipe up. He goes, actually, you can, as long as we stay under your roof. That is.
He smiles and says, you're nowhere near any of our roofs anymore, kid.
I feel like we also get a panel of Amber being like, I mean, with parental permission.
And he looks up and he says, yeah, but Daddy's not here now, is he, Amber? So you came to track down my friend here. Bianca, have you met these 2 kids? And Bianca, Queen Bee, stands up. I don't know if I've described Queen Bee before. I probably have, but I can read you her description. She's probably about 5'10". She's black. Her hair currently is in dreadlocks. She is in like a business suit that's black with yellow accents. So they're like yellow stitching. And it's especially tailored with cutouts for her wings to slide through.
Nice.
She's got like a very like bee aesthetic going on there. And she wears this like really, really bright gold, not like bright gold, but like shiny gold lipstick and some gold eyeshadow. She's quite striking. As you know, she used to be a lawyer, and people were often like, she's disarming with like just how put together she is, which is still true now that she's a villain. She says, I don't believe I've ever had the pleasure of an actual introduction. Hi, I'm Bianca. And she puts her hand out.
Alan will look at Amber, glance at Amber real quickly, and take Bianca's hand and shake it. The pleasure is mine, ma'am. I am Alan. It's nice to meet you.
As you take her hand, you notice that there's like a almost rush of euphoria. It's not like intoxicating, but it's just enough that you like feel disarmed by it and slightly like knocked off balance. You all would remember that Queen Bee has a lot of like things that she uses. She's got flight. She's got some pretty intense strength. She's very, very brutal. But her like primary skill, her primary mutation, is this pheromone manipulation that she has. That she's got this like intense pheromone that just kind of surrounds her. And you probably wouldn't have known, but it is incredibly potent through touch. She releases her hand and like she kind of shakes it a little bit, and she's like, sorry, I forget to warn new people. Touching me is a bit risky sometimes.
One thing that's going to happen as Alan relaxes, because the pheromone would also relax him a bit, is that because he's been so pent up as he's walked down here, electricity actually discharges from his, like, just across his arm, not creating an arc enough to smart or to hurt, but most definitely like if you were to touch a doorknob after being after rubbing your feet on the carpet, will have popped between Alan's and Queen Bee's hands, Bianca's hands, as he pulls away.
She kind of grins and she's like, I read about you, kid. I heard you had some great power. And then she turns to Amber and she says, what about you? Your dad tells us you're a technopath. What exactly do you do?
I mean, I'm kind of like live current, and I can control machines.
That could come in handy. You know, if you ever want to pop over to our side, we could use someone like you.
I mean, I have my dad's powers, so you kind of already have that.
Yeah, but you've got something your dad doesn't. You've got some natural strength in there that he doesn't have. No offense to your dad, he's great, but just something to keep in mind. And then she sits down. No one else sits down.
Is she trying to shift my labels?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think she's just inherently kind of seductive in the way she talks and the way she presents herself.
It felt like a label shift to me.
I mean, sure, we can shift it. Why not?
I was going to say it really felt like one.
It felt like freak up, superior down. That was my read on it.
I was thinking danger up, superior down.
Well, both of those are maxed out in their respective ways. So
Take the condition.
You can roll to reject if you'd like.
I feel like she would take that one.
All right, then you can just go ahead and mark a condition for me.
Yeah, I'm just trying to decide which one. I think I'll do insecure.
That's what I was going to say too.
Yeah, as much as she loves rejecting people changing her labels, I feel like she would take one that's just like, oh, you're better than your dad.
Fair.
That's fair. Bianca sits down, and no one else sits down at first, and then like the mobster kind of awkwardly sits next to her. There's a weird power dynamic thing that you can't quite pick up on in the room. Like usually the mobster makes all the first moves, but Bianca is making decisions, and it's confusing, and there's some weird sparks in the room here.
Yeah, there's two of us.
Bianca says, so, what exactly did our friends ask you to find me for?
Well, they want you to help drive back the Astrons, but they were pretty loose with what that required.
She nods, and then she looks at Alan, and she says, and why did she send you? Or why did they send you?
I'm just the muscle. That's all.
She thought you'd need muscle.
No, I think they've realized who my dad is.
So they don't trust you then?
No, I think they just wanted an in.
Sounds like they sent their pet to keep an eye on you, make sure you didn't go rogue again. Nice work with the handcuffs, by the way. And this time she's shifting danger up and savior down.
She's gonna try to reject that
Cool. Go ahead and roll to reject.
because I cannot take danger up anymore. Oof. All right.
On a miss, their words hit you hard, mark a condition, and I will shift your labels.
Guilty.
Cool. I think that these words hit you. I don't think you feel super dangerous with this. I think it's like you feel a bit more of a freak in this moment. Like people don't quite get who you are, and you thought you were helping, but you weren't, and it's all very confusing. And then I do think that we shift your savior down.
Okay, so freak up, savior down.
Yep.
Sweet. So now she has 3 different labels that are at their max at one end of the spectrum.
That's
Incredible.
You got this.
This should be fun.
As you're talking, there's a moment where the intercom like spikes up again, and there's a sound that's like, wait, that's not, and then the intercom cuts out, and Bianca kind of cocks an eye, and Bruce starts down the hallway. The mobster tightens his grip on his teacup, and his other claw shifts below the table towards something. And then in the distance, there's like this like low rumble, and Crux kind of looks around and says, I think we've got company. Reset also kind of looks around, and Reset starts to like head away towards the staircase. Not the one you came in, but the other one. It seems like they're in a hurry to get out of there before whatever happens. And then we hear Bruce cry out in the darkness as there's a roar of an engine.
Alan's gonna look at Amber and go, didn't I tell him to stay outside?
And with that, Bruce comes flying in through the doorway, crashing into the table, sending the tea all spilling, except for the mobsters because he was holding onto it pretty tightly. Max and his motorcycle come zooming into the cavern. So, Max, you come zooming into the room.
I would first like to get a panel of Squire, like darting out from the shadows and grabbing Max's outstretched hand. And then a panel of them flying along with Squire in, like sitting in Max's lap. Then I would like to pop a wheelie and then continue popping that wheelie until the bike flips. And I would like to launch the bike at the mobster. Then I would like to land on my feet and continue running towards him to punch him again.
Great. Let's start with a directly engage a threat to launch that bike at the mobster.
So the first time, from my no powers and not nearly enough training, the first time I use a piece of gear I've written in that line to unleash my powers, defend, or directly engage, I can roll plus mundane.
Cool.
Nice.
Great. That's a 10 plus. So on a 10 plus, pick 2.
Okay. I would like to resist or avoid their blows because I cannot deal with more conditions right now.
Cool.
And I would like to impress, surprise, or frighten the opposition.
And who is the opposition in this case? Mobster?
You know what? I'm leaving all the variables there up to the GM.
Oh,
I don't
Lord.
care if it impresses, frightens, or surprises, and I don't care who it does it to.
Oh, God.
I just want to look good.
Fantastic. Go ahead and describe what happens when you launch this bike at the mobster.
He is super, super strong, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like we get a panel of it flying towards him. He kind of grabs it with his claw, still takes the brunt of it, and is holding it. And then Max comes in, punches him in the face, and that's the last bit that topples him down.
Yeah. I'm gonna say he definitely takes the hit from the bike. And like he catches it, but it kind of does knock him off balance and like pushes him backwards. We get the moment where his claw kind of like shoves the bike to the side. And then I'm gonna have you roll again to punch him in the face.
Okay, so this is going to be much worse of a roll. We
Cool.
shall do it.
Yep.
Yay!
That's a roll.
We do have one team because everyone starts with one team. Every game you start with one team. So you could send team selfishly. Someone else could help you punch him in the face. I don't know what we want to do here. Or we can
Wait,
just take the fail.
I have the bonus from Squire, and Squire's absolutely running up his leg.
Perfect. That's a 7. Pick one.
I'm just going to create an opportunity for my allies.
Fantastic. So we get the moment of surprise. He grabs the
I could.
bike and kind of tosses it to the side. And then as he like looks back up, you're right on top of him and your fist just clocks him across the jaw. He doesn't fall, but he stumbles back a couple feet. And then he like reaches out with his claw and just grabs you around the neck. And then without missing a beat, he just flings you backwards and you go skidding back through the open archway on your back and just like skid in the dirt and the like cement floor. And I'm going to have you go ahead and roll to take a powerful blow.
Okay, I feel like I spend about a third of my time in combat flying through the air.
That's true.
You're good at it, yeah.
Thank you. That's not too bad.
All right, on a 7 or 9, choose one.
I'll give ground.
Cool.
At this point, Alan wants to step ahead. Since he can give ground to his opposition, Alan's going to take up opposition in this moment. And he's going to step between Mobster and Max and go, Max, stand down. We were having a conversation and you fucked it up.
I'm going to say that does kind of sound like you're shifting a label. Are you? I mean, I guess you're not really lashing out verbally. So
Does
we'll
Alan
not
have
say that
influence
just
over
yet.
me anymore?
I do not. I do not.
Yeah,
have
right.
way last
That's
time.
Yeah, I lost that when I told you to stay back.
That's a good point. Yeah, Alan, you kind of yell and lash out. And before you have a chance to react, Alan, you feel suddenly unable, like it feels like your powers are just drained away. And it looks like Queen Bee also looks a little drained, and Machina, you also feel drained. Standing in the middle of the room with their hands outstretched is Reset. Reset, as you may remember, has the power to kind of eliminate any superhuman abilities in the room and just kind of like extends her power or their powers out, and everyone just kind of feels like there's less power in them than before. It doesn't affect Bruce that much, it looks like. It doesn't look like it affects the mobster, and it doesn't look like it affects Crux. It also doesn't look like it affects Max, but I don't think they realize that yet.
I'm super strong.
And Reset says, "That's enough now. Everyone, let's just take a deep breath, shall we?" And then she gestures for Crux, whose hands immediately spark up in electricity. Alan, you recognize it as your electricity, like the electricity that you use. And it's a very threatening, like, gesture, but it's not aggressive. Like, we're not using it to attack anyone. It's just okay, we all know that I could hurt all of you if I wanted to. So let's all take a seat and relax. And what do you do?
Can we get a panel of like Amber looking back at Max and just kind of like doing like that like cutting motion underneath your chin of just like cut it out?
Yeah, absolutely. Max, you see her do this motion. What do you do?
I avoid eye contact immediately. Look at my shoes. Imagine I'm standing up, kind of brushing myself off.
Are you standing up and going to take a seat? Or it seems like we've now pulled enough chairs to sit in a circle. The table has been officially destroyed by Bruce crashing through it, but there's still chairs around it.
Yeah, I'll walk over towards that way.
Cool. As you do, you hear the whirring of the motorcycle, which doesn't look like it's in that bad of a shape, but it's still running. I don't know what you did to rig the gas to keep it rolling, but it's just kind of one wheel is spinning in the air and the other wheel is kind of spinning on the ground, and it's kind of just slowly rotating. You can hear the metal dragging along the stone floor as
I'll go pick that up and take care of that.
Yeah, sounds good. It took some damage, not a ton, but enough that you're probably gonna get yelled at. And also remember, you did sign your life away in that contract. So that'll be a fun conversation to have later. But it's you managed to turn it off and get it righted. As you do, everyone else has taken a seat. Alan and Amber, did you sit?
No.
I was gonna say Alan puts his hand up and says, "I'll take that seat now."
Okay.
Okay, so everyone except for Amber and Max have all sat.
If Alan is sitting down, she will sit down.
Okay, perfect. So as Max gets the bike situated, everyone is taking a seat, and when Max turns back, all eyes are on him. And then we get a clap, 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 and focus turns to Queen Bee, who has this rather cruel smirk across her face, and she says, "Well, aren't you the wild card?"
Max, kind of finally taking in who's in the room, turns, points at Queen Bee, and goes, "We need your pheromones. You don't have a jar?"
Jar?
I don't know how this works.
Bet you're happy I'm saving again.
What?
That's what we were just talking about, Max.
Oh, well,
Yeah. We were having a conversation with them about the Astrons, and we were about to get into that conversation before
We were having a civil conversation.
you crashed the party.
Max kind of sheepishly walks over to the seat and goes, "You didn't seem all that dangerous to me."
Did you say that to Queen Bee, or did you say that to someone else?
To Alan.
Gotcha.
He has a point.
You all still feel like the power is drained out of the room, and Queen Bee turns, and Queen Bee is in the seat next to the open seat, Max, so when you sit down, you sit next to Queen Bee. If you sit down. Have you sat down?
I'm probably just kind of standing, pacing back and forth behind the chair.
Cool. She puts her hand out and says, "Bianca Martinez, and you are?"
Alan wants to pipe up and go, "The idiot who signed his life away for a broken motorcycle."
It's fine. I'm the Rascal King. I'm gonna shake her hand.
And normally when you shake her hand, there would be pheromones that zip through you, but with Reset's powers kind of blasting through the room and eliminating everyone else's powers, you don't feel it. And she kind of smiles and she's like, "It's a great name for a kid like yourself." And she is shifting your labels. She's shifting mundane up and savior down.
I'm not in a good position to be resisting that, but tired of people telling me that. Yeah, okay. I will try and resist that.
Perfect.
Never mind.
That is the best roll I've ever seen.
It's just straight 0.
Straight up 0.
Wow. So yeah.
I would like to mark potential.
On a miss, their words hit you hard, so you're marking a condition.
Okay. I'll go with hopeless.
Cool. And I do think that
Actually, I'm gonna go with guilty.
guilty.
I did just crash a peaceful meeting by hitting someone in the face with a bike.
Hitting 2 people in the face with a bike. Technically, you also slammed Bruce into the room.
How is Bruce, by the way?
Bruce is good. Bruce has stood up. Bruce has lost a tooth in that incident.
Oh, nice.
But fortunately, shark's teeth grow back pretty quickly, so he'll be fine.
Oh my god. Can Squire grab that? I want a necklace.
Yeah, Squire can grab the two. So I think that it does shift your mundane up. I'm so sorry.
Okay. I am
And I
now
think it
hopeless.
shifts your freak down.
Oh, yeah, neither of those could happen.
Okay, so go ahead and mark another condition.
Yes. Don't worry. I'm not afraid.
Yet.
Yet. Not afraid
That's all.
yet.
That's all I'm not, but I've got that.
The next thing that happens is the room is pretty tense. It seems like everyone is pretty aggressively frustrated with one another. There's some tension between the mobsters and tension between the mobsters and Max and tension between Max and the other teammates. And then we hear in the background of one of the panels just like this small like throat clearing. And we turn and there's a little girl standing there. She's at the entrance, like where the other staircase came into the room. She's probably, I'm gonna say she's 9.
Is this the same girl from all the photos?
It is the same girl from all the photos. She looks a little bit older, but she's still the same girl from all the photos. And she says, "What's going on? I heard shouting." And Crux is gonna come up to her and like put his arm around her shoulders. And he's like, It's okay, sweetie, you can go back to bed." And she said, and then she looks and she sees the motorcycle and she says, "Why is there a motorcycle downstairs?" And then she looks up and she sees Rascal King and she says, "Wait, is that Rascal King?"
I'm gonna give her a weak thumbs up.
And then she looks and she sees Squire and her face just breaks into this giant smile. And she runs over to Squire and she's like, "Can I pet her?"
Oh, Squire's already belly up.
Squire, the girl pets Squire. And she's like, "Are you working with Rascal King now, Baba, Dad?" And Crux kind of looks over and says, "It's a little bit complicated, but maybe." And Reset goes over and they take the little girl's hand and they say, "Come on, sweetheart, let's get you to bed." And as Reset leaves, the feeling of energy drain kind of like releases and everyone's powers kind of rush back at them. It almost feels like what it feels like when you get the wind knocked out of you. And that like first like gasp of air after that.
Can we get a
And-
panel of, as they're leaving, can we get a panel of like Amber's face with just this kind of like, this like soft, like, "Oh God, that's me" look on her face?
Absolutely.
With powers rushing back in the room, because Alan's powers are very visible. Is Amber still holding Alan's hand?
Why not?
You would definitely feel the electricity rushing through my hands into yours.
I feel like we get one of those panels where like her hair suddenly is like standing on end, like rush of energy.
I love that.
And then I think like we can go from like that like face of looking back at the little girl to like turning towards Alan and being like just this face of like, "Hell yeah."
It's like a drug.
Reset and the little girl exit up the stairs. And then Crux turns back to the group and Crux says, "I'm sorry, I thought she was in bed. She's supposed to be asleep. Though I guess it was a bit noisy." And he gives a pointed look at Max.
Soundproof in this cave is terrible.
Bruce has like managed to stand up and Bruce is still looking a little weak, a little beat up. And Bruce is like, "Normally people don't drive goddamn motorcycles in the basement down
Well,
the
maybe you need to hang out
stairs."
with cooler people.
There's a moment where he's glaring
whatever
and then
panel
kind
he
of
says that,
grins.
Alan is glaring at Rascal King.
Can we just like get a reaction panel of like Amber and Alan? That's Alan's face, and Amber just kind of has this face of like she's totally trying to restrain from bursting out laughing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we get a panel. So we get the panel of your reactions. We get a panel of Bruce pretty close up. And he's glaring. And he looks angry. And it's like you see this like bloodlust in his eyes. And then the next panel, it softens, and the next panel, it's just this like big toothy grin with notably one tooth missing right in the front. And Bruce is like, I like this one. He's fun, isn't he? And he comes over and he just claps Rascal King on the shoulders. And it definitely hurts. Like, he's in a very, very muscular, large man. But it's not like an attack. He's not trying to hurt you.
Right.
And he says, well, for what it's worth, I think we should help him. I think that's going to be our best bet here, boss. The mobster kind of nods and says, I was thinking the same thing before we were so rudely interrupted, but Bianca, it's your body. It's your choice. So
Hell
what do
yeah.
you think? And Bianca kind of looks around the room and she says, I won't work with Saber, but I could talk to these kids a little bit more.
We can definitely do that. Fuck Saber.
We aren't Saber. We're the Cataclysm crew.
I'd like a panel of Squire back at the motorcycle pulling like a mason jar out of a bag and holding it up.
I think we see Squire pull out the mason jar, and then we see like Alan's text bubble cutting across the like very back of it in smaller letters, saying "really a mason jar." And then
I love it. The scene ends.
The scene ends there.
Moon Harbor Heroes is produced by Anthony Sheets and TP Hugh, and edited by Anthony Sheets. Anthony can be found on Twitter at Icy New Year, or at icynewyear.com. T is the host of Incubator on Air, a new play podcast available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play. They can be found at T Huth Playwright on Twitter, or at TPHuth94 on Instagram. Cataclysm Crew is GM'd by TP Huth. Rascal King is played by me, Anthony Sheets. Machina is played by Elliot Peterson. She can be found at Elliot Yulin on Instagram. Our logo was designed by Beautiful Beasties. She can be found on Instagram at beastly.doodles or at patreon.com/beautifulbeasties. The music of this issue is Mistake the Getaway by Kevin MacLeod. A link to his website and the license will be in the show notes. If you want to get a hold of us, email us at moonharborheroes@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at moonharborcast. If you enjoyed this issue, please leave us a review on iTunes and tell a friend. Word of mouth and 5-star reviews are really the best way for us to keep bringing these stories to more people. And thanks for helping us save the world. We'll see you next issue.